What is up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Cinema Wave Podcast here at the Culture Wave Media Network, and we are back to discuss episode 2 of season 2 of HBO Max's Peacemaker. The episode is called A Man is Only as Good as His Bird. I'm going to be one of your hosts. My name is Darian Vinny. I am joined by Sean Villa.
What's going on, people?
And Vinny Albano.
Hello.
So Sean making his debut for Peacemaker.
Yes, sir.
Sean, you binged season 1, and Vinny and I, for like a few minutes last week, discussed a little bit of the recap of season 1 and how things were changed and whatever, but you're like very new to all of it. Like just jumped right into it. So I am curious for people who maybe watched our episode last week, give us your take on what you think of the show thus far and what you thought of season 1, kind of binging it going into season 2.
Yeah, okay. So I think when I went into it, so I didn't watch it when it came out live because I honestly thought Peacemaker's funny in the Suicide Squad, but like a whole show about him, I just didn't buy that it would be anything interesting. It's way better than I thought it was going to be. I caught up to it because season 2's coming out. I really liked Superman. They're going to be connected now. So I was like, okay, I'll get into it. I'll give some time to this whole DCU thing. We'll see how it plays out. Season 1 I think is just just very baseline good. I didn't think anything about it was particularly excellent other than John Cena's performance. I think he's really funny in the role. He's also a way better actor than I thought he would be. I haven't seen him in too much, and he's killing it as Peacemaker. I don't know. I enjoyed it. It had a pretty fun plot. It was fairly dynamic, and I really like that it is a crew of just absolute nobodies, of just random agents and a guy who works computers and Vigilante, who no one's heard of, who is maybe the highlight of the show for me. I love Vigilante. But yeah, it's just a super nice, cozy found family show with a likable cast, good action, a fun soundtrack. It has a very, James Gunn aesthetic, and he's a real auteur. So I'm enjoying it. And I'm liking season 2 quite a bit so far too, but we'll get into that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So it's glad to hear that you like the show. Glad that you dig the sort of vibe that it goes for, because it does take a lot of big swings, because it is the show that James Gunn has talked about kind of in interviews and things, where he's like, this is basically the show where anything goes. We can do whatever we want. And I look at it kind of as DC's equivalent to Deadpool in a way. I think it has a lot of the same sort of vibe, and even Deadpool, within the Deadpool films, you have that found family element that we see within the first couple Deadpool movies. So I really enjoyed season 1. I was saying to Vinny last week, I thought within even the first 10 minutes of the premiere episode of season 2, you start to see a lot of how Cena's just improving. And not that he was bad previously, but from the Suicide Squad to season 1 of Peacemaker, now to the first 2 episodes that we get of season 2 of Peacemaker, it's he has a deeper understanding and appreciation for the character, where he's being more vulnerable. He's kind of giving himself more chances to do these different things.
Yeah. And
so that's what I'm really intrigued by with this season. This episode is a lot of what you're talking about, though, where we get the reintroduction of the found family element, because a lot of it has to revolve around the 11th Street kids and everyone kind of coming together. So, Vinny, for you, obviously, we talked a little bit about how we talked about Vigilante last week and how we were hoping to see more of Freddie Stroma. We get a little bit more of him in this episode, and we get a little bit more of Isabela, and we get the introduction to Meadows' characters. So for you, just overall general thoughts, what did you think about this episode?
Yeah, I think this episode has an excellent end and conclusion. We go into what is to come in a very exciting way. I will say this episode is a lot of build-up, and at times it can feel like we're kind of meandering. But it is valid and warranted. So I understand why we're kind of in a position, because we're letting the characters breathe more, and we have to understand that Harcourt and Chris right now are yearning for something more, and yet they're not getting it out of life. So that's kind of my overall thoughts. The standout to this episode for me is, I forget his name, but the agent who is introduced to be working with Economos.
Yeah.
Tim Meadows. The actor's name is Tim Meadows, but I'm trying to think what his character name is.
Dude, he is my favorite part of this episode. I was dying at every line of dialogue. It's so cringe, but in the most perfect way.
Yeah.
When he goes, when Adebayo is at the door, and then he just starts rubbing Economos' shoulders. He's like, ooh la 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 la.
Yeah.
And he goes on and on. And the way his delivery is so straight. And the whole bird blindness, it's so stupid. I love it so much. He genuinely was having me like dying out loud.
Yeah, I think he's an actor that fits the Gunn aesthetic well.
I agree.
think that because he comes from sketch comedy and he's best known for his work on SNL and things like that, he's a welcome addition. I think the whole thing that he has kind of with that team that they assembled to kind of go into Chris's house, and they show that in the first trailer, like all the names he gives them and things like that. Like that's a funny little bit too. But Sean, what did you think overall of this episode and compared to the premiere?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess just to like kind of recap my thoughts on the premiere, because they meld into how I feel about this episode. In general, I think the character writing is really strong in these first two episodes. I don't think it was weak in season one. I'm just noticing like a real sense of there's this thing in writing that one of my professors used to call giving a character an alone moment, which essentially just is exactly as it sounds. It's just having a character in isolation, getting to see a bit of their life and sort of how they process like moments where they're not there to fulfill some kind of plot thing. We got a lot of that in this episode, and I think it really like adds to the overall like feel of this crew. I think they're all becoming deeper characters quickly, which is usually a sign of some like really tight character work. But I also think that the acting across the board I've really noticed is like quite good here. I think they feel really natural with each other, and there was like a pretty substantial break in between season 1 and 2. I think season 1 was 2022. So yeah, I mean 3 years off, and kind of like, you know, James Gunn having to work around an entire extended cinematic universe, and then coming back to a very like grounded and I guess like mismatch of like these seemingly random people, and still giving them like the time of day to like give them real like character moments. It's just like impressive to me. I think that's like why I tend to be so fond of James Gunn as a writer, especially because like you were saying about the humor. I think that's another element of it, is that he's got such like a boyish, stupid humor, but he can put it through so many different voices, which is so great. I think like he likes his fart jokes and people exploding and you know, just really like dumb juvenile shit. But Peacemaker and this new agent character and Adebayo, they all kind of express it in a different way, and they feel unique. Nobody like blends together, and nobody's there as comedic relief. They all are their own people with their own quirks. And yeah, I just really felt that in these first two episodes, almost more strongly than I did in any part of season 1. So that excites me for like the future of the show. Just going forward this season, I think we got some good seeds planted. So
yeah, I think it's hard to see if there's like that many other filmmakers that can balance ensembles better than James Gunn can.
Yeah, he's really good at
because
it.
I think about it where with the Guardians movie, like he had like what a lot of people thought was like the first Guardians movie was like an impossible task of like basically giving life and personality to a character that only says 3 words, making a talking raccoon such a popular, like Rocket is one of my favorite, like probably top 3, top 5 MCU characters because of the way that James has written him. And then bringing all those characters together. But then as the movies go along, he adds more characters. He builds out characters like Yondu and Kraglin and things like that. And in Superman, which we all really, really enjoyed, like he does that too, where he's going from making a Superman movie to now this next film that he's been talking about making is going to be something in the super family. So he like really likes dealing and balancing all those characters and having them bounce off one another. And even though this is a show that has a titular character similar to Superman, where it's all about one character, Peacemaker, Chris Smith, I do think that that dynamic of the 11th Street Kids is something that still kind of elevates the material every single week. But I do, and I agree with you, I think the acting across the board is great. I think those moments that you're talking about in the moments of being alone, I think Cena plays it up so well, because at the same time it also leaves these moments to understand sort of what came before and what that means for him, because it's like he's already killed his brother, his father, and himself now within less than 2 whole seasons worth of material. Plus he killed Rick Flag Jr., which we get the kind of the intro to that.
Yeah, I like that beat too.
In this episode. I agree. I liked what we see. in the beginning. We're starting to get a little bit more with Grillo. I'm hoping we get more as the weeks go along with Rick Flag Sr. because he's a character I hope to see more from. But yeah, those moments of isolation for Chris, I think is building that sort of tension naturally where you're feeling for this character that obviously is so isolated and so alone that he needs to do something drastic to feel back to how he felt. And I think that bleeds into the multidimensional kind of aspect to it.
Yeah, so that's interesting. Vinny, how do you feel about like the multiverse stuff in this?
Yeah, I said this last week how I think I am tired of multiverse as much as other people are.
Okay.
However, this show in particular is keeping it intimate and it's keeping it narrow enough where this can be a really good plot thread.
Mm-hmm.
How I just don't want it to be like, oh guys, wait, hold on, Power Girl is here now, and a Batman #2 is here now, and all that, right? But if they keep it intimate and they keep it narrow and they just use it strictly as, for the service of telling a great story, I'm fine with it.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I think there's a real difference between doing a multiverse because like we want to show the fans what what if Peacemaker was actually Superman in this universe? Like we don't need like too much of that. I think the idea of using it like as a like a thematic way of like this is what your life could have been, and like using it as that to like to basically just further a character arc is the right way to go about using it. It depends on what they do. Like if Rob Pattinson Batman shows up in this multi-dimensional door, I'll be like, oh, cool, but it does sort of deflate what I'm saying and like what I'm attaching to with it right now. Yeah. So we'll see. Yeah. But yeah, generally, I think it's okay. I'm the same way as you, where when I first saw it, I was like, no, immediately we're getting in the multiverse. Immediately. It's like we're like one movie into the DCU. We're going to do multiverse immediately, but whatever. We'll see how it concludes. I'm hesitantly optimistic about it. But yeah.
I know you last week, Vinny, too. Correct me if I'm wrong, just because I'm not sure. Like Sean had a chance to watch the episode we did last week, but you were talking about thematically how you didn't want it seemingly to be that like this Earth 2 is essentially the most perfect world, right?
Yeah, true.
So how do you feel about if it plays into that? If this is kind of just a way for Chris to just literally escape all of his problems by going into this other world. We kind of get that in the preview that it's not going to be that way.
Yeah.
There's already going to be conflict, but how would you feel about something like that?
I didn't see the preview, but I did catch a vibe of that in the like final scene because there was a line in there. I don't remember who says it. It's either Agee or the father.
Same character.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. So it was all
Chris.
Chris is Peacemaker.
What the hell's his name? Keith. Thank you. Keith or Agee says, do you think it's the pills again? I think. So I think what, if I had to make a prediction on like kind of where this arc is going to go, it's going to be that it seems to Peacemaker that this is like the perfect life, but really he was probably like a way worse person in this reality, and he'll be like, oh, my mistakes made me who I am or whatever. It'll be something like cute like that. But, yeah, I got the vibe that it probably won't be perfect, but I think it's important that it seems that way, at least for a second. And if it's not, that could also be interesting because, if he comes to this place and now he's sort of invited himself into a conflict that he has nothing to do with, and like that's always interesting to kind of see how that unravels.
Yeah, I agree. They show in the preview that he basically gets himself in this world, but then they show something where there's like this crime that's taking place and he's with Harcourt. And he's basically just like, hold on 1 second, I'll be right back. And then like the next clip, and again, it could just be creative editing, but the next thing they show is Keith kind of being like, you all right, man? You're disappearing a lot more than like usual, even for you. So it's like Keith is coming into this where it's not like he's going to be Chris's enemy, but it's going to be this person in his life that he's been without for so long that's now questioning who he is as a person, and he's getting might crack and be like, you didn't even fucking know who I was. You know what I mean? So that can be an interesting dynamic that we see going forward too. The family thing is the only thing that I wish we get more of in this episode. But like Vinny said, I know we have to start to kind of expand on some of the other characters. Because to me, that's the most interesting aspect of the multiverse is that he's living in this world where, and again, you didn't have a chance to talk about this, but like, I don't know if you saw in the after for the first episode, but like even where Robert Patrick walks up to Chris and he like touches his ear and goes like, "Love you, bud." That's like improv. That was improv.
Oh.
And so like that's something where it's like such a tender character moment, but Robert Patrick is so obviously knows how important that father figure would have been for Chris in his life if he would have been that way. So that's what I'm excited about, is that family dynamic and seeing how that breaks down, because I know that shit is going to hit the fan eventually, because a lot of what they're promoting is that a lot of journalists were given the first 5 out of 8 episodes, and they were purposefully not given the last 3 because they basically said David Denman, the one who plays his brother, basically was like, yeah, like the last 3 episodes feel like an entirely different show. So that's intriguing to me.
That is intriguing. Yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see where this is going to go. I think, ultimately, when we're just talking about episodes 2 here and episodes 1 and 2 a little bit, I think it's just planting interesting seeds is sort of the overall like general takeaway I have from it. I don't know how it's going to play out. We'll have to wait and see in the coming weeks. The way that it's set up right now, though, I think is really compelling. I think like there's a lot of good stuff here. What do you guys think about like other? I agree that Chris's whole thing with the multiverse is probably the most interesting aspect. What do you think about these like other side plots going on? Because I was really kind of taken with what's going on with Harcourt. I think she's really like coming into her own as like a second main character. Adebayo has some like pretty interesting relationship stuff in this episode. We have Economos, who's I guess like sort of like the most up in the air. Him and Vigilante, I'm not quite sure like what their season arc's going to be, but like generally, what are your thoughts on that, guys?
Vinny, you want to tackle it?
Yeah, I am most interested in Economos, actually.
I would echo
because,
the same thing.
Yeah, as he's kind of playing 2 sides of the coin here, I have no idea where he's going to end up by the end of the series. And if we had to bet if someone is going to die, I have a feeling he's most likely going to die. Just because, playing both sides of the coin never ends out. It never becomes good for someone. So I'm most interested in him. I will say, honestly, as a critique of Adebayo, I felt really nothing with the whole relationship problem that she's facing. It just felt... I don't even remember them breaking up. I'm going to be real.
So I don't think they do on screen.
Okay.
I think it's just like they end season 1 like, oh, they're happy together, and then season 2 starts up, and he's like, oh, remember the breakup, and you just kind of like let to know. I thought that was going to mean that the girlfriend character was going to be excluded from the show. So I was surprised to see her actually show up in this episode, because I thought that the breakup was like, we don't really like know what to do with that plot, so like we'll just write her off the show. But it's like, no, she's around. So they want to like actually explore like a breakup for like the character, which I think is interesting. I don't know where it's going to go. But like whatever, sure.
Yeah. Everyone else I love. We talked last week about how much I love Harcourt as a character right now, and I'm very curious how that's going to play in with Harcourt number 2 in the other dimension. Right. I'm curious if we're going to see Harcourt share the same room with Harcourt number 2 and have these 2 different dimensional beings together. I'm also curious about subplots, what the Martian has to do with all this.
True.
The guy that keeps... I don't know if it's just a gag. It can't be just a gag. That's too much. And he's also in the intro of the film, or the show. So that Martian that keeps coming into the interdimensional chamber needs to be addressed.
Yeah, at some point. Or not, knowing James Gunn. He might just be like, no, we're not going to address it at all.
Yeah, I kind of just like him being there. I think that's fun.
I will say, Danielle Brooks, I actually really like her as an actress, the one that plays Adebayo. Okay. I really enjoyed her in Orange is the New Black when I first saw her. But I agree with Vinny in terms of I'm not as intrigued with that because it feels so inconsequential because I don't remember it from season 1. The biggest thing that stood out to me in season 1 was her relationship with her mother being Waller.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling we're going to get Viola in the last 3 episodes.
Hopefully.
And because I do think that that's something where we need to kind of have a bit of closure, because at the end of season 1, I mean, you just watched it recently, so correct me if I'm wrong, but like she has a very like visceral reaction, like what the fuck is she doing?
Yeah.
Like where she's kind of turning on her daughter fully at that point. So it's going to be interesting to see what the aftermath of that is for her character, if it's addressed at all in this season. That's something that I'm more intrigued by. I agree though, Economos playing both sides, especially seeing the fear in his eyes when Rick Flag is kind of like, I want to see the file on my son, knowing he was a part of that whole mission in the Suicide Squad, because he was the guy at the computer that was essentially speaking through Waller. So I think that whatever happens with him, and I hate saying this, but I do think that the only character I actually think might have a bigger chance of dying than Economos is Vigilante. And I have a feeling that because James Gunn loves to kill beloved characters. He loves to do it. And I can see it being this thing again that kind of maybe even brings Harcourt back into it, with Chris understanding the bigger meaning of what the 11th Street Kids kind of means in order to make something happen in the end. So I think that I am intrigued by some of the subplots thus far. Harcourt, I agree. I think Danielle Holland has done... That's her name, right? Danielle Holland?
Jennifer
Holland, I'm sorry. She is doing a really good job getting to explore a lot more in this season so far, dealing with the anger management. She gets some moments of comedy in this episode that I thought was great. Her calling the dude Beaker, I thought was hilarious.
Yeah, it was good.
But yeah, I think we just need to see a little bit more for me to, like you said, I think the biggest thing right now is that interdimensional rift. And I think by the end of the season, that's going to be, honestly, I think it's going to be kind of a minor thing by the time we get to the end of the season, because of the potential of so many other things that can happen.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see, like, if the season... It could go a couple different ways. Like, the season could end with, like, you know, we closed the gateway and now the multiverse isn't going to show up, like, unless, you know, and then we can, like, leave on that note. Or it could be, like, it's open and now the Argus has access to it, and then we'll probably see it in the next, like, DCU movie. But I think for the context of the show, yeah, it probably will end up being, like, a minor part of the season. I like what they're doing with Harcourt, because they have that line in the first episode where they're like, you have like toxic masculinity, and I think like that's such an interesting thing that they're doing with her, is like giving her like a stereotypical like male role. I think like that's fun. That's really like cool. I haven't really seen that before, of them exploring like a female character having like a traditionally like male problem of like, I don't want to talk to anybody, I just want to get in the fights and like fuck you, and like I don't know my place or whatever. Like that's really cool writing for me. I like that a lot.
It's basically gender swapping and making it like yin and yang with Chris, because Chris is overly emotional.
Yeah, kind of like switching up the like typical gender dynamic there. I think is really like cool writing. I wasn't expecting that at all, but it fits the characters really well. And I'm curious to see if they're gonna play with that idea of it being like a gender swap thing, and that'll have relevance to the arc, or if it's just sort of like, yeah, we're like flipping it on its head a little bit. Yeah. Like on a meta narrative level. But we'll see.
What do you guys think about the conversation that Chris and Harcourt have on the roof? The small conversation they have kind of before.
Vinny, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, it's hard to comment because I feel like the show wants us to feel the friction there, and how they're not, you know, it's like butting heads. So I don't know really much else to say. I feel as an audience, you want them to end up happy ending in the end. But there's a feeling that I don't think they're going to get together by the end of this. I think it's going to actually remain that way, but it's going to be more or less that they learn to be comfortable in their own skin, being independent individuals rather than depending on, you know, a yearning for love.
Do you think Harcourt ends up either back at Argus or with another organization by the end of the season, to where she kind of goes her own path that way? Or I guess it's like, because I don't know if that's technically like turning on Chris or not, but obviously her biggest goal is that she wants to find herself again. And the only way she feels that she could find herself is through that trauma that I feel like she's been enduring since she was a child.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, the problem with having James Gunn, who I think is like a fairly subversive creator, is that I think like if this was a more what do you call it, like big business show of just like there's like no auteur behind it, I would probably say like the show's gonna end and they're all gonna like form their own little like group and they'll fight crime together and be their own like Avengers or whatever. But I don't know what the hell's gonna happen. So yeah, I think the idea that Hardcore could turn on them is interesting. That could totally happen. That would be subversive and fun. It's hard for me because I think there's a lot of cool ways that this can go, and we're so early in the season. There's 6 hours of content left, so like who knows where the fuck this is gonna go. It's 8 episodes again, or is it 10?
I believe it's 8.
Okay.
I believe it's 8. Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think that there's not a crazy amount to talk about with this episode. Mm-hmm. We didn't talk about the action scene with Eagly, which we can touch on sort of briefly if you guys want.
Yeah, I mean, whatever.
I think it's fun. I think James Gunn always finds ways to do interesting action scenes and things that we haven't seen before. Yeah. That's my biggest comment on it. Vinny, what did you think?
This is my favorite scene. And it was pretty dope. I love just seeing animals fight bad guys.
Yeah.
And it was dope. Like, Eagly is goated. I feel like I feel so bad because, Chris has love for Eagly. But when we really, like 9 out of 10 times when we see him interacting with Eagly, he's just yelling at him and being like, stop, or he's drunk and it's like drunken love, which in my opinion, I don't view that as real affection. So I just feel bad. I'm like, really, like you gotta, but Eagly's loyal. Eagly is loyal. So regardless, he's fighting. The CGI was a little weird at times, but I give it a pass because although how stupid the shot is of the blood against the moon and how bad that looked, it was fun, and it's a funny show, so it has a comedic tone where I can kind of pass it off. Right. I did enjoy the dynamics of the fight scene though, and I liked how, although Gunn didn't direct this episode, specifically during that fight scene when he's flying around, there's some really cool crane shots of the camera just like kind of flying through the air, which are really cool.
Yeah, I liked I thought it was funny how they had the needle drop.
Oh yeah.
Like when Eagly's kind of just looking at the camera, just like strutting and stuff. Yeah. Like just the way that they give the character so much personality when literally all he does is squawk. Yeah. I just think is great.
It is fun.
What did you think about the scene?
Yeah, I think the best part of the scene, honestly, is the aftermath. The scene that you just said you didn't like of him like coming home and having Eagly on the bed, because it's like I've been there, like coming home hammered and being like, "What's up, cat?" or something, just like hanging out with him. I thought that was really funny and that was like a fun payoff. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you know what it is? I think the action scene was cool, but all the characters in it were new, and I didn't have like any real feelings toward them, so there wasn't much like tension for me in the sequence. Not to say that it needs to be like a tense eagle fight. Like obviously it's kind of like stupid and dumb. But yeah, I don't know. I just kind of thought it was like fine. It didn't blow my mind or anything, but I was like, yeah, okay, fun, like cool, whatever. They got shit on by a bird, so like sick, The bird blindness thing. All right, you know what? I'll take like kind of a controversial stance, maybe. I think weirdly that sometimes I think a lot of this show has like some improv elements to it, where like they give the characters like general lines to say and then let them kind of play. I think in the edit they let some of the bits go too long. Like they just let them keep riffing, because I feel like a lot of it becomes like they'll say a line and be like, "Oh, eggs make me fart," and then they'll be like, "Eggs make you fart? Yeah, eggs make me fart." Well, why do eggs make you fart? It's because like sodium. They're like, "There's no sodium in eggs," and they just keep going. And there's like 14 of those conversations like every episode, and I think like every now and then I'm just like, "All right, like come on, let's go forward." And I think the bird blindness thing for me was like funny at first, and I thought he was just like fucking with him. Like that was how I read it, and I thought that was funnier. Is like just like showing up and just trying to like gaslight some guy you don't know. But then like he actually is like bird blind, and I was like, okay, like I guess. But like that kind of, I don't know. I was like, that's a little stupid.
All the characters become a little too affable, which I think is totally understood. Like the characters are treated very differently than any other characters in comic book anything.
Yeah,
I feel, but I can understand the criticism, and I do get it because I agree. I think some scenes do go on too long. Then there's some things like. I agree, the bird blindness thing. The first time, like when I was watching it, I also read it the same way. But when he's in the room and he's aiming at the bird, and he's like, I can't tell how big the bird is. Like that actually made me like crack up.
It's funny, but it's just like So wait, he like what does he have like an illness? Like is that a thing in this world? Like that you can get like a bird blindness, like mental defect? Like I don't know, it's just like. Yeah. And then I was like, I'm thinking too fucking hard about it. It's Peacemaker.
It's Peacemaker. It's ridiculous. It's over the top. It's insane. But I think it's a fun episode overall. I do think it'll probably end up being. If it winds up being as good of a season as we're all hoping, I think it'll be one of the worst episodes of the season, though. I think it's just kind of a filler.
Yeah.
Like a lot of it, like you were talking about, there was a lot of meandering, Vinny.
Yeah, right? I 100% agree with that. I feel like it plays its part in stitching the season together, but looking back on this, I could see this being a very 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10 episode compared to what is to come, which seems a lot more exciting from the previews and the trailers. I will say I really liked the Pokemon line.
Pokemon?
Yeah. That guy, he caught them all. But I agree with you where that moment was very obviously like a Rift improv moment. But it's just it's so quotable. I can't lie.
Yeah, I think especially when James Gunn kind of gives it, like Steve Agee and Tim Meadows both being comedians. Yeah. It's like, and he loves writing comedy, and I think he appreciates comedy more than most directors. So I think he kind of allows the space for that. But I understand both sides of it. I totally.
I'm not saying it's not a funny show. No. Let me get that very clear. I think this is a really funny show. I think sometimes they just need to cut it like a couple lines shorter.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
That's it.
I think that's totally fair. But I think that's pretty much it for this episode. Yep. Let us know in the comments, what do you guys think about this episode? Give this video a like if you guys can. What are you guys looking forward to seeing for the rest of season 2 with Peacemaker? We still got 6 weeks left to go. I don't know if we're going to be back next week to record just because I'm going to be in Toronto for the Toronto International Film Festival. I return on the 11th, so the following week we'll probably be covering
3 and 4,
which will get us to the halfway mark, which will be cool. Maybe hopefully we can get Michael in here as well to talk about Peacemaker. But cool. Let us know what you guys think in the comments. Check out all our social media. All that stuff is below me in the video. It's also in our YouTube description. And check out all the other stuff we're covering on the channel right now. We have reviews for Don Don, The Summer I Turned Pretty. We have Caught Stealing review coming up. I'm going to be covering a couple films before TIFF that I'm going to be posting throughout the week, and there's going to be a lot of coverage for the next. We're officially in like awards season as well for the Emmys, and a lot of Oscar movies are going to be coming out, so we're going to be recording a lot. So check all that stuff out. But just signing off, I'm Darian Scalamoni.
I've been Sean Villa.
And I'm Vinny Albano.
And we'll see you guys next time.
This is The Culture.